Of the number 6 from Roush Fenway, Trevor Bayne. Hey, bud. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Nice to have you with us. First question for Trevor Bayne.
Don't everybody get up at one time now, okay? I know you're getting tired, but hope you're having a good day.
There we go.
Jessica Ruffin with NASCAR.com. You guys have had a lot of changes in the offseason, moving to a two-car team this year, and along with some personnel changes. How do you feel like that will help you performance-wise in terms of being able to focus your efforts just on these two teams?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this this change at Roush Fenway Racing. But first of all, Greg Biffle has been a great teammate for myself and for Ricky and for the Roush Fenway organization. He's brought a lot of wins and a lot of success to Jack. So I want to thank him for everything he's done for us before this year. But moving into 2017, I think what it's going to do for our race team is just make us more nimble and able to react faster. As we all know, NASCAR is changing every weekend, every day. If you're not making changes on your race cars, you're not keeping up with the competition. And, it's very easy in the offseason to implement all your changes. But as the season goes on and the larger you are, the harder it is to get all those changes into your race cars quickly. So I think this will take us from, being a month or 6 weeks out of, finding some speed and actually getting it in all the race cars to a couple weeks. And that's big for us. As you find things, you need to have them in your race car. So I look forward to that. I also look forward to, Ricky and I, we've been friends since 2010, I believe, when I was at Diamond Waltrip Racing and he was at Roush Fenway. And then I came to Roush Fenway and we were still really close friends. But later that year, we kind of started this Ricky versus Trevor campaign. And it was always, who's doing the best? Is it Ricky? Is it Trevor? We were always on this kind of totem pole. Who's the best at Roush Fenway? But I think Ricky and I have kind of realized in the last couple of years of being teammates at the Cup level that it's not Ricky versus Trevor anymore. It's Roush Fenway Racing versus everybody else. And we've come alongside each other as teammates and really are going to push each other this season. I mean, I feel like we started doing that last season and we saw some result from it, but we're going to learn from each other. We're going to be humble through it and understand that you can learn from each other. And we're going to push our team. I think that's our role as drivers, is to get in there, motivate our guys, and to finish the season as strong as we start.
Bob Pockris has a question.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Do you feel like you can build on last season, or did you feel like the way the season went that they kind of lost momentum there?
I think we can learn a lot from last season. In sports, we're quick to look at our last performances as our evaluation of a whole season. And last year, I think we kind of shocked ourselves and everyone else when we came to Atlanta and got our car to qualify third, ran well. There were a lot of times early in the season we were making it to the final round of qualifying. I remember Jamie Little would do an interview with ESPN, or with, she would come by and do an interview, and we would talk about it, and I'd qualify good, and she'd laugh and be like, oh, I got to interview you next week, and she'd come interview me, and I'd make it to the final round again, and we'd crack up about it. But that performance early in the year was something that shocked us a little bit. As the season went on, I feel like we did not keep up the way that we wanted to. So what we have to learn is, how do you, I touched on it a second ago, how do you stay as motivated and make the gains from Michigan to Homestead that you make in the offseason, that you show up to Atlanta and Daytona with? So that's what we have to do as a team. We have to stay motivated. I think the guys are motivated, but we have to continue to communicate better. You've heard this a lot at Roush Fenway Racing in particular, is a culture shift and a communication shift. And I think that's taking place. You don't have a culture shift by replacing one or two people or by, hiring new personnel. The culture shift has to be ingrained into every single person in the organization. And I think we're getting closer and closer to being to that point where everybody believes that we can do it at Roush Fenway Racing. Everybody's on board. Everybody's willing to work the hours. Everybody's willing to, endure the hard days, because it's easy to get pumped up to go to Daytona. I'm sure everybody you've talked to in here today has said how excited they are and how pumped up they are to go racing. But it's those summer months that we get to when you really find out what you're made out of and what you can accomplish throughout the rest of the season. So I'm looking forward to that this year. I'm looking forward to learning from last year. And again, I'm really pumped up about the guys I have surrounding me and just their mentality right now, because they're willing to do what it takes to win races and to get us back.
As a Knoxville driver, you've got one of your home state newspapers that would like to ask you a question.
Yeah, Trevor, you were talking about Daytona. Obviously, last time you went down there, you had the third place finish and really seemed to be strong under a stricter place. Just how excited are you to get to that race?
Well, Daytona is always that bittersweet double-edged sword. You know, it can go and you can win the race, or you can wreck out on lap one after a rain delay. I've done both of those. But we do know that Daytona is a great opportunity for us to go and win a race. And I'm sure, again, all the other drivers think the same thing. But what I believe in is, you know, the program that Jimmy Finnick has kind of built in our super speedway cars. You know, that process of him being there and overseeing every car that goes to the racetrack at super speedways has shown to have performance. Greg Biffle was on a pole last year. We almost made the final round at all the races. I think we qualified 13th in almost all of them, and maybe one we qualified 11th or 12th. So we were right on the cusp of that. You know, Ricky Stenhouse had performance in his race cars. They showed up on the racetrack fast. We finished third at Talladega, as you mentioned, and ran well at Daytona. And, you know, I think performance does matter at those races. When you're going to pull out a line and make a run, you got to have some speed in your car. So we have that. But what it ultimately comes down to is making the right decisions throughout the race to put yourself in the best opportunity. And I hope to do that. I hope that, you know, Matt Pusha and myself can be on the same strategy. Roman Pemberton, he'll be on the same strategy as us, and just as a team, we'll be firing right when we get to Daytona. Last year at Daytona, I had a lot of unknowns. I showed up with a new crew chief, a completely new team, hadn't worked with any of my guys before, and I feel like we started out pretty strong, but we've learned a lot about each other. We've learned a lot about our weaknesses and where we fail each other at, and we're going to build on that to get better.
Question way in the back there to the right.
Keith McFarland Review. Trevor, if looking at the sport as a whole, and of your experience in interacting with the various stakeholders, from the fans on up, what would be like a change or two that you think would be ideal for the sport and probably would be readily acceptable?
And that's a very hard question. You know, I wish I had all the answers. I think about it all the time. You know, as drivers, we sit there, as Carl Edwards said, you know, we wake up thinking about it, we go to lunch thinking about it, we go to sleep thinking about it, and we dream about it. But, you know, I don't have all the answers to that question. I think that they're pursuing that, though. You know, I mean, I don't mean to give you a political answer, but with the format changes that we're going to, you know, I think NASCAR is pursuing that, and that comes from a culmination of the stakeholders, as you mentioned. That comes from the drivers, the fans, the track owners and presidents. And, you know, I think that ultimately what we want at the end of the day is the best racing possible, right? So we want everybody to be motivated. We want them to drive hard. We want the crews to make risky calls, and we want the cars to be able to run close to each other. So, you know, I wish I could tell you how to make the cars run closer together. Obviously, when we can accomplish that, you're going to see the best racing possible, but there are a lot of engineers smarter than I am figuring that one out. As far as the new format changes, though, the benefit I think you're going to see there, you know, as a driver, I can't push any harder, right? I race every single lap at 100%. A lot of drivers would tell you I probably go over that edge sometimes and make them mad, but, you know, I mean, we cannot push our cars to race any harder to win a stage. But what you will see, and what it will culminate, is strategy changes. Our crew chiefs are going to be trying to do things throughout the race to make it more interesting to get the most points possible. If I win 2 stages and finish 20th, I'm going to get as many points as almost the guy that finishes second. So obviously wins, especially stage 3, are invaluable. But for us, it creates an opportunity to strategize, to mix it up, and really be risky. The guy that runs 15th all day and just executes well is not going to be rewarded as much as a guy who takes chances and gets those stage wins. And obviously the end of the race is always what we're shooting for. But so I look forward to that. I think, you know, maybe Daytona and Talladega, you could maybe turn up the aggression a little bit, maybe not the intensity, but you could try some things at stage 1, stage 2 that you normally would say it's way too early for that. So it may change the intensity there a little bit. But ultimately, I mean, we want to put on the best race we can for our fans, and I can promise you all 40 of us are driving our guts out. And now I think, you know, beyond just winning the race, our crew chiefs will have something else to work towards.
Mike Hembry has a question for you. That'll be our last question.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. It's been quite a number of years since Ford won the Drivers' Championship. Is it going to take a collaborative effort of all the Ford teams to make that happen, or can one team kind of catch fire and win it?
Well, I mean, I really hope that Roush Fenway Racing can always be the team to bring the trophies home for Ford, but in reality, it's going to take an effort of everybody being together, right? I mean, the more you can combine your resources, the better off you're going to be. And, I don't know exactly what that relationship's going to look like yet. We haven't been to the racetrack yet with Stuart Haas as a Ford team. We've obviously had a good partnership with Penske, but it's not like we're going to go sit down in our meetings and they're going to lay out their chassis blueprints or their aero sheets. And, I definitely hope that Ford will kind of put their stake in it a little bit and say, all right, guys, we got to work together. And we hope for that at Roush Fenway Racing because I feel like we're kind of an open book. So I would challenge the other teams to be willing to work together. But, I think as far as an owner's championship or a manufacturer's championship, it always takes every team that you've got, and that's obviously what Ford wants to do. They want to hedge their bets a little bit, and they felt like Stuart Haas was a great team to partner with to do that. And Ford does a really good job with their drivers of bringing us together for events, trying to get us to have conversation. And we may not share data sheets, but we can have conversation to help each other along. And it's that one little thing that you hear in a meeting that really could send your team the right direction. So I look forward to working with those guys, getting to know them better, and I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish this year.
Remember that you don't want to keep the Ricky and Trevor thing going, right? Well, he's up next. We got to get him up here.
Sounds good. Come on, Ricky.
Trevor Bayne, thank you.